look at the last week, just to get us up to speed again, we looked at negotiation and in particular negotiating our relationship of our partnership, or collaborative, cooperative effort. Yeah. So today we really want to look at relationship management, and I shouldn't make jokes because there are too many potentials here already with relationship management. So it's as simple as it sounds. It's not so much managing somebody, but more about like recognizing their needs and responding as well, and kind of creating a relationship that is fruitful, where you kind of are thoughtful about it. And we do so by looking first at relationship management, what the literature actually is about it, then types of relationships, then globalization and cross-cultural issues. This is where we have a lot of problems. Yeah, we have kind of done a very brave thing. We have decided like, hey, let's forget about all the stuff that we don't do so well in the past, so technical focus, yeah. Like, for example, take the smartphones that we have nowadays with touch screens combined. Yeah, those are technologies at the time with a touch screen and scrolling that were all over the world. So to bring those together and kind of have now a product that we can use it and have something that makes us really like thrive in this, meant we kind of had to look around globally, what is around, and bring it together. Now, technically, this was often, when we come to that, very easy to do, but there was something else, and we have a closer look at that made it really a challenge. Then we go at interpersonal relationships, psychology 101, yeah. Then strategies for improving relationships, then a little bit deep lessons from 6th century BC military strategies. Yeah, you may guess which book I'm referring to. If not, I have it later on. And then last but not least, relationship management in PFIs. So I have two cases there. Both students of us, well, staff students, they wrote their dissertation on the topic because it was a big thing. And you will see the data, the visualization that they use, give you a little bit an idea. I mean, they've done it over time lapse and kind of created rich pictures, but it's very powerful cases. Any questions so far? Anything missing in relationship management that you would like to see? No? Yeah. Okay. What I'm always missing personally is ceremonies and symbolic interpretations for relationship management. That is sometimes perceived too soft. Yeah, but yeah, we look into that. Now, development of project management has gone kind of down a certain line. So project management was really initially this very hard interface of resource-based focus. Yeah? So projects kind of being the notion like operationally as a company, this is nearly impossible if we don't find a way of doing this with less resources in a shorter time, or maybe spatially independent. Yeah? So let's not do it in the same locality, we have to do it somewhere else. And there's a new dimension as well, which is kind of, well, actually we discover that in a second. So this was kind of the starting point, and because Keller and Turner still have like good representation, especially when it comes as well to relationship management. So it's contract, you basically filter your relationships based on best price. You know? We're very kind of intuitional, and you build then kind of the linkage to assemble it. Now, Stuart Green, actually Stuart Green is named here. This is actually slightly unfair. There were other scientists behind it, so he's just the director of a research institute in Reading and in London. So he looked at it at a more functional point of view. How can we make products, services really work? And focus on the functional management. So this is kind of like last 10 years. Then we had information processing, rich data, big data are the hip themes at the moment. Graham Winch really interested in that. And kind of in between, in like 2005, Pike and Smith revised kind of what they perceived as relationship approach. And they came from a nearly diplomatic perspective to kind of be accountable, authentic to cultures, not imposed like cultural styles. And that was so powerful that they actually realized it hasn't got just to do with different countries, nation, it has actually to do with accountability to the people, so person-to-person relationship. more than like necessarily nations or organizations. So very interesting development. With this, what is relationship management? So the paradigm of project performance and client satisfaction achieved through an understanding of the way in which a range of relationships between people, so person to person, between people and firms, so a person employed by a firm, or how a firm may interact with you as a key person from a company, and between firms and firms, as project actors operate and can be managed. So this may be an interface, and I have later on as well pictures. This was kind of Pike's and Smith's definition of that. So they really focused on a social paradigm, and it's behavioral based. We look at favorable behaviors and sequencing. So what do I mean by behavior? I come to that in a second when I come to my cases. There are different behaviors, how you can engage with certain partners or relationships. So then you have as well the understanding the need of the business partners, and maybe as well harvesting and cultivating a certain relationship that is favorable for all. So if you come from an environment where you may not be used to one type of relationship, you shouldn't give up, but maybe try to harvest it if it's in the benefit of both. So why relationship management? This is always a big question. Well, partnerships and alliances can be beneficial. We have learned this. So even contractually and monetarily, capacity-wise, this may make sense. But, and it's a big but, as you can see, there is as well, information must flow smoothly. Loyalty is important. So, and here we talk already about relationships. I hope you see that. Let's do a quick quiz. How do you feel if like the situation is slightly tense in a relationship between me and you? Do you feel that it's easy to communicate? No. Oh, you all said no. I hope one would be like, yeah, Robert is always like approachable. But no, you're right. Yeah. So tense relationship makes actually information flow actually a little bit stubborn, and you may wait to crisis point where you are kind of pushing for information exchange, which is very difficult. Loyalty as well in a bad relationship, or if you can't really identify with what your partner is doing, it's not where you want to be, then it's very difficult to be loyal. You maybe do so for the contract's sake, but you may not want your brand to be upfront either. So there is again a biased implication here, and of course trust is as well essential. So a good relationship may not mean that both are happy, but you can trust each other in what you're doing. And reduce and manage project risk, and I break that actually down what that means in project terms. So common risks in projects, in particular in collaborations, are delays in responses to questions. You may have experienced it sadly on rare occasions with if you have questions to module tutors. So the response may not come in the 2 seconds you are still looking at the screen. It may come just 3 minutes later. But I mean, this is like poor response time. I take here full blame with that. Or slippage. You were like kind of hoping for a response and it's not coming. So those are very common things in projects and great risks. Decline in morale. So it kind of links if you see. But minor conflicts as well. So you kind of wanted the product. The car was meant to be red and now it's silver. And it's you think it's not even silver. It's kind of gray. It's not really, not what you were asking for. So there may be minor conflicts, and then as well personality clashes. Well, what is a typical? Have you come across personality clashes? Okay, everybody's kind of yes. But did you have a good example that we can kind of take to ground that? I take as well made up scenarios if you want.
My last job, no one got on.
Nobody?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so what was it based on?
So I take it you're a young, like, strong communicator, and this was not
No, everybody, every single person was totally different. Apart from 2 girls, which lived together and worked together, and they were really close, but everybody else was really different. So everyone, it just didn't work. I mean, the organisation was really bad.
okay.
So I don't think that helped matters. But yeah, there was no.
So people were absolutely missing each other's communication level. Yeah. So a classic example that reminds me a little bit of that. I had that in South Africa when So we have one guy that still wrote letters, and this didn't really resonate with the young employees. So he would actually come and say, "I've written you this letter, and it's very important for me." And we would be like, "What's going on? What is the letter about? You may want to read it in your own." So it was about privacy, that I should go away and read it carefully. And I think he hoped I would write him a letter too. So and I didn't understand it at the time. It was a clash of personalities. So I skimmed it. So I didn't even read it properly. What? No, I don't think so. What do you mean? It was exactly what he tried to avoid. I confronted him straight away with kind of the issues that he wanted, like a certain distance to. Yeah. So this would be personality clash. And then I learned, like, oh, okay, he likes to kind of write letters, and I can write letters too. So for me, it was okay to adapt. But this is a lesson learned already. Yeah? So I failed initially. I had a personality clash too, and then we started writing each other letters. Yeah, I still write postcards now. So it's a strange thing. It has changed me. Now we have as well severe risk. So here we have litigation. Oh, what is litigation? Litigation. Anybody? Anybody in for litigation? What could litigation be? I mean, it's actually a legal term. As a rough concept, what does that mean? Where are we on the crisis? So it's a sign of crisis normally, of unhappiness, conflict. And where are we? Is this like, no, I disagree. Let's get our manager to decide. Is that what it is?
It depends on which context, I think, litigation, but it's usually when there's a disagreement between 2 parties and it starts becoming adversarial to the point you get lawyers involved. So, but that could be in any context. It could be just a disagreement between the work body and your managers having to deal with it or something.
Are you involved in an independent party because you can no longer come to an agreement, or to a closure? So quite powerful. Often expensive, time, effort, moral-wise, trust-wise. Then lots of good staff, so it gets a little bit more tensionable, and people kind of look for jobs as well instead of like maybe working on. Then stress-related issue. Here I don't really mean the positive stress that makes you wake up and think like, yeah, let's do it. It's more the stress that is kind of, oh my gosh, now we have to do this too. So it's a negative association with it. And explosive behavior. So this is when tensions kind of build up. And last but not least, the project failures often as well associated with the relationship. Now, when you look at type of relationships, we have I like that this is actually hands, and here's kind of symbolic things. But yeah, okay. So here we have business-to-business relationships. What would that be? Business-to-business?
Could be supply chain interaction.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah. So where organization unit hits another organization unit, and you may have an exchange. This may be contractual, partnership, shared joint venture, other vehicles that you can use. So that is the idea. Then you have the organization to individual. This is maybe how this can be internally, this can be external. So you as an individual, you may approach an organization. And then last but not least, we have as well
amazing drawing. Individual to individual. Yeah, so this is of course a personal relationship, and we have different types there as well in the relationships. But what is the? Can we get a feeling maybe for closeness? So what is a formal way of business to business relationship? What can we do? Like if you really want to work with each other, what can you do? A sign of a relationship.
Greeting.
Yeah. So what would be a platform for that?
Contract.
Yeah, contract. Yeah. Can be partnership agreement. This is kind of the type where we settle like basically business to business agreement to work together in the future. Yeah, there are as well softer forms. Organization to individual. Often again contract. Yeah, but it can be as well other platforms. So this can be a contract to work within the organization. It can be as well a contract to work for the organization. Yeah, consultancy. Does that make sense? So there's internal, external. Oh. Hello. Okay, and individual, we have similar individual to individual contracts. So there's a relationship scenario as well with traditional settings like marriage, yeah, and things like that. So the metaphors go actually on, yeah. Now, managing organizational relationships, we can kind of look at different elements. So you have cooperation in a duality with competition, learning versus protection. Yeah, this is actually associated with knowledge. And then you have as well short-term goals, normally a little bit potentially at conflict, depending on how you are coining it, with long-term goals. Yeah, and that kind of sets us in the scene of looking a little bit more at cross-cultural and global interfaces. So as I was mentioning, the last 20 to, actually to be fair, we kind of started it 60 years ago. We looked at global and cross-cultural collaborations to kind of get the best from all over the globe. Yeah, and the notions that we can kind of now manifest is we have an increase in partnerships and collaborations internationally. So this is a rising thing. We try to bring the best of us to wherever you want it. Yeah, so it's a competition with the locality. You are not just relying on your local supermarket. Now you too can buy wonderful products from all over the world. Yeah, so this is the idea basically. Then increase in numbers of projects with multicultural teams. Now this means as well we harvest, of course, skills and technical know-how and technologies, equipment and so forth as well internationally, and work in international teams. Increase as well of project with international stakeholders. So as well the requirements and kind of ideas and focus, strategic focus has shifted, because stakeholders have different preferences. And then of course we have as well more and more international joint ventures are notoriously hard to manage as well. So here's a quote that kind of resonated from that. A single greatest cause of difficulties in global business transaction is not the lack of technical expertise, hard work or good intention, it's a lack of people skills and the understanding, of course. Yeah, for relating successfully with the counterparts from other countries and cultures. Yeah, so relating, having a common ground, getting each other's perspectives, and being able to address it. Now, this is not really new, to be honest. Quick joke on my account. So I actually have been in partnerships like that. Sometimes I think the collaborative process would work better without you. This is pretty grim, right? Just two people, and then yeah. So collaboration maybe not his strength, quite frankly. There's a self-recognition in this too, right? So it's quite an interesting one. But what it really is about is relationship awareness, and the current literature really focuses on behaviors. And in the past, it was if you're interested in this, there's very ancient history and literature on this, where it's about temperament. Yeah? You may have heard of the melancholic. We still have that in art and drama. Yeah? If you are culturally interested, there is a melancholic-minded. What does that mean? Melancholy.
Melancholy.
Sad.
Yeah, but sad. Is it like oh, I don't want to do anything, or
Negative, just
okay, so
negativity.
but it's indulging the sadness, yeah. So the romantic movement, if you like art, yeah, you see it's always a sunset, somebody dying in the background, yeah, and it's beautiful in its moment, but it's so sad, yeah. If you want to experience it with music, Mahler, yeah. If just type into YouTube Mahler and just listen to one, it's actually this is kind of like European focus. There's a lot more. If you're more Latin America, Mercedes Sosa, yeah, the pleas there, you will see it's very melancholic. It goes deep as well. New pop music is there, but I'm not very knowledgeable of recent music names, so you would have to research that yourself. Yeah, but this was in the past associated with kind of relationship building. Yeah, and it would be choleric is another one. Yeah, cholericism. Well, what does that mean? Actually, in Greek, it means high-blooded, boiling blood. Yeah, it's associated with high-rising tempers. If somebody's choleric, did you know what that means?
Control freaks.
Yeah.
That's like a control freak. Like they always want to be in power.
Yeah, that goes in the direction. It's explosiveness. Yeah. So at the moment you are still cheery, and then like a drip of the coffee goes on the table, like on the beautiful decor. Yeah. And it's like a reason for explosion. Yeah? And so choleric was about this explosiveness. Yeah? Expressionist, in art. If you're again, okay, I go here too far. But again, so in the past it was like about somewhere rooted in the people. Yeah, so you have a certain mode of a temperament of states that is likely to come out of you in ecstatic moments. And we have drifted away from this because we have noticed actually in certain situations these temperaments are kind of in all people. So more or less. So now we look at behavior, and the relationship theory goes still along the same lines. Even Plato wrote about this 2,400 years ago. It's driven by motivation. And motivation changes in conflict. So this is as well worth recognizing. So again, here the choleric aspect would go in a revenge mode, whereas the melancholic would be like, no, it's okay, we can fail together, yeah, and embrace it. So there were different implications. So we still do that, yeah. With the motivation, we look at the conflict, how it changes, and then personal weaknesses are overdone by strengths, yeah, and personal filters influence perception. This is as well important, and that was again where we are kind of back at this like strange piece of literature of 2,000 years ago, if you're interested. Now, with this, you can see as well rationally or integrated project teams that you want to kind of address it and avoid that you have these extremes, particularly in conflict. Not avoid, but create an environment where you don't corner people to an extent where they are going in extremes. Yeah. So here, selection of suitable teams is critical to success. So we should recruit for that. And the importance of a relational integration as a partnering criteria is important. Yeah. So in a way, the team development that we're doing in the conference, take note, this is a way to do it as well. Yeah? If you have a big partnership and you set up like a new organization, this theorem is very popular for particular Europe. There are other theorems too. Yeah? So you will see that, I hope it makes sense when you're on the conference. Yeah, but those are very strong tools to actually kind of build a relationship. Wow, that was impressive. So, but let's jump back a little bit to like even other Asian pieces of literature. What does anybody know where the quote is from? Has anybody heard of The Art of War?
Yeah. Have you? So it's a general from the Ying dynasty that wrote this down, and he studied basically his enemies absolutely entrenched, and there's a beautiful literature piece as well on it. In the end, when he has finally understood his enemy, he says he can no longer attack him because he understands his perspective and wants to settle diplomatically, which was the dilemma for the king, because he wanted to attack, and wanted to make it his. And the general was like, no, we cannot do this. Look at their perspectives. They do need the land. Anyway. So here's a quote: know your enemy, of course not your partner. So don't see it as an enemy. This is an important notion here. So it is said that if you know your enemies and you know yourself, you can win 100 battles without a single loss. If you only know yourself but not your opponent, you may win or you may lose. If you know neither, if you don't even know yourself, nor your enemy, you will always endanger yourself. You're in for the ride, in other words. Now, deep lesson, of course, this goes a little bit further. So how can we know ourselves and how can we become aware? Well, it's about emotional intelligence. And here, the method to help understand, assess people's behaviors, management styles. So there's as well preferences. Those are hygiene factors that impact on a relationship. Attitudes, interpersonal skills, and the potential, of course, of it. Actually, all of you will play exactly the simulation on those grounds. You have 2 organizations next week in strategic project. Sorry, I jump here between topics, but the interesting thing is you will see there's a difference in management styles. They imply as well different styles of communication. And when I was in my military service, I would have been very surprised if my superior would have told me, Robert, what do you think about maybe cleaning up the room? This is not how it was communicated. It was more like, clean up your room. And I would have been surprised to find it otherwise. But again, at home, living with friends in a community, I would have been slightly disturbed if one of them would have told me, Robert, clean up your room. I would have been like, wait a minute, I have moved in the wrong shared house. Okay. Yeah, you get the idea. So there is a implication with this, and it's a conflict factor if it goes wrong. With this comes as well understanding yourself, your goals. So understanding yourself, we do as well a lot kind of subconscious. So it means that you have somebody to kind of have an honest conversation and reflection with. Then your goals as well, intention, responses, and of course behaviors. And last but not least is the understanding of the others and their feelings, which is often not so obvious. Now, a wonderful model to use is from Mayer and Savoy. It's quite old, but still it's a powerful model to get your head around. It's very functional. So you, in the middle you have the emotional intelligence. It's a process looking first at the emotional perception, emotional integration, so perception from the different people that you're working with, and then you integrate. So what do you want? What do I need? And then you can kind of starting to think how you can bring it together, and it creates an emotional understanding. And the highest level is really emotional management. Realizing as well when your emotions may impact so heavily on the other person that it's overwhelming for them, that they cannot function. You bring them in that conflict situation. I hope that makes sense. So it's focused, of course, on the self. So very tough concept, but if you apply it well, you will be perceived as a very good manager. Another aspect to soften that and create an environment that kind of cultivates aspects that suit you well, and don't put you in a position where the whole organization is kind of already set up in an awkward way or like slightly contented way, then is of course picking your team rightly. So normally the PACT principle is passion, ability, and capacity, and here this is a very subjective thing. So if you're a team leader, this is your interpretation of it. So you have to make it work with your team members. So pick people who want to be on the project. Yeah? If you have this recruitment power, have the necessary skills to appropriately complete the project. Yeah? Necessary skills doesn't always mean necessarily the technical expertise to do it, an engineer. It may be more looking, if you have a problem, if you have a new project, you may want to look for problem-solving skills from an engineer, rather than looking, has he ever, like for example, if you build a Tesla car that is driving around at the moment, you may want to recruit people that have a car background, but that are passionate and curious about kind of breaking the old theorem and trying out a new way of putting a car together. This is what you would recruit for. So there's a knock-on effect with that. And then have the time available to focus on the job at hand. Sometimes the good people are very demanded, so they're doing 4 or 5 jobs at the same time. Or you may want to have like rather one that is curious, doesn't have the experience, but is really committed. Yeah, and match the makeup of the partnering team, of course, respectively as well. Yeah, don't get a team from the other partner involved that kind of contradicts and kind of creates conflict on that side. Yeah. Now then we have as well the boundary spanners, and that is kind of where it helps to have people that have the emotional intelligence and operate as well smoothly with it. So those are kind of the key agents that are between your organization, for example, and the other organization, or the teams that link them to each other. Yeah. So here it's important to possess competences which contribute towards effective management. They have the ability to maintain relationships, yeah, and have an understanding, of course, of the motives, roles, and responsibilities of project team members on either side. Yeah, this is often very important. Now, in summary, if you look at the concept, projects are about the people, and you will see that I showed you I think the slide as the first slide. 50 to 60% of our partnership attempts fail, more or less on the people side. Yeah? The contracts, we have very good lawyers. It's kind of standardized. Yeah? They are trained to write it in a certain way that is actually legally sound. Yeah, but what our partnerships and joint ventures really fail on is the people aspect. So partnerships bring people together across organization, cultures, and personalities. Very important as well. This is the hard bit. Know yourself, know your team, yeah, and kind of understand as well how you can collaborate better. Yeah. Be strategic but honest. This is very important as well if you want to be perceived authentic. Now, to make a little bit sense of that, let's have a look actually at relationship management in a PFI. Now, this is the library, if I'm not mistaken, that I was on about already, I think yesterday in the other module. Yeah, this is relationship management is particularly important in PPPs, and here in the PFI in particular. We will come to that in a second. When you look at the contract, it's very simple. It's only one company with another, but if you want to make it work, well, we come to that. We'll see it's not that simple. So it forms often complex relationships between private and public partners in PFI cases. And there's a formal versus informal relationships, and we have a look at that actually. So here it is. Does anybody know what is this? What do you call something like that? Anybody? Organigram, yeah, you're spot on. Yeah. So it's an organigram from the contractual relationship, and it's not just one, it's many. Yeah? So this kind of Newcastle City Library, the PFI, it's the one, now, have you walked to Wayne Jones and then over the bridge, and then there's this glass building opposite the Hancock Museum, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what other places? There used to be, it's Oxford Street, there were as well clubs.
Landmark Gallery, is it? Not Hancock.
Pardon?
It's opposite the Landmark Gallery, is it? Not Hancock.
Art Gallery, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
spot on, yeah. That's, okay, it didn't resonate. So this could be homework, yeah? A quick lunch walk over the bridge, having a look at the library. So it's a glass-in building, and if you want to read there anything, it's actually kind of open plan. They haven't thought that through, but it's very, very pretty. Sorry, that was forget that. But the contractual relationship was basically, Newcastle City Council as a client. Then we had a partnership, a developer, a bank, of course, that kind of put the finance forward. Then Turner and Townsend as the project managers, and they had kind of developed the PFI as a special purpose vehicle to kind of deliver this, the library. And you had as well integral, what is FM? Football master? No. Facility management, yeah? So they kind of were interested that certain attributes were achieved in the library. And then you had Toland Construction was a main contractor that was kind of organized. And then you had the breakdown, subcontractor, specialists, and then Ryder Architects that kind of did the design. They actually won it. You had Mott McDonald's doing civil and structural engineering, Robin Landscape Architects that kind of puts a few plant pots around it. It's not a lot, yeah, but they did that. Then SES as M&E contractor, mechanical engineering, is that right? Mechanical, yeah, it's service. Mechanical and electric, that's the one, yeah. Yeah, spot on. And then it went even further. Now this is the contractual official setup. Yeah? Now this is a non-contractual relationship just from the architect with whom he had to kind of speak, build the relationship. Does that make sense? So for example, the architect had particular wishes, so he had to kind of convince the client, the developer, not so much the bank, but facility management. They were all knocked on basically by the design. Hence, subcontractors and specialists were as well involved to actually get kind of the appearance that you're after as an architect. You know, you have certain ideas, concept, you want to have a certain feeling in a building, you know, it's supposed in a library maybe quiet, maybe spatially inviting, that you want to go inside and have a look at the books or other stuff that they have. They have as well small art galleries, they're actually quite interestingly. And you see that basically they had a lot of non-contractual relationship interaction. Yeah, so that they had to make it work to achieve their piece. Yeah? And just to go a step further, to give you a further idea, that is kind of the non-contractual relationship from Toland. So this is Toland. Ryder is the init. So basically, I should be careful here. This is from Paula Blanche. She did her master's thesis in this, and she mapped that, of course, over time. Yeah, this doesn't mean like this is one Skype call where everybody was in it. Yeah? This means over time, those were kind of contacts that they had to communicate with, agree things with, settle things to actually getting the project moved on over time. Yeah? So probably at the beginning with the design, you work a lot with the client, developer. You may look as well with the project manager, TNT, to price it out. You have maybe as well then a little bit feedback from civil and structural engineering to make sure that your design is actually feasible. That it will stand up, and so forth. And as well with the facility management team and the other players. Now here you kind of get the idea of the complexity that is involved. So agreements are kind of made, and other players basically may be consulted to get in and out. So the architecture may focus on aspects from design, whereas the main contractor may want to have a certain procedure on site, which has a knock-on effect on other players. Yeah? And you can see they were as well as main contractors very interested in the interior designs, finishes, surfaces. This has a huge knock-on effect how you're building it. If you have like a wonderful wooden floor, then you don't want the contractor or the subcontractors wearing like sharp steel edges and putting it on the wood floor. Yeah, you're basically leaving an imprint. That was a poor example, but it goes in that direction. Yeah.
Now, if you map it for all players, it gets so this is non-contractual relationships that were mapped out in this project. Yeah, and this was a brilliant MSc dissertation. Yeah, so if you're interested in something like that, communication, yeah, and in particular relationship management, this could be a way. I mean, this is just illustrative purpose. She did it over time and kind of mapped the systematic drawing out. It's a pity she didn't use network analysis. That would have really benefited her for visual purposes. But the big question that remains is, so who communicates actually with whom? Is a strategy. Yeah. That's a big question. So it's about building relationships, yeah, and finding this accountable aspect that you can actually move forward and get it done. So this suggests as well a lot of improvisation, quite frankly. Yeah. Now, actually, did you have questions to that project? I've just read this dissertation last weekend again to get it fresh. Is that similar to what you would expect as a project manager? And pretty colors. So she could have done more there. Yeah, visualization could have been better. Okay. Now another project is kind of the PhD project from Alex Hope, my colleague from the business school now. So he worked actually on the North Tyneside Council, PFI. It was a 300 million PFI housing project, largely looking at providing housing opportunity for elderly tenants and owners, I suppose landlords, that had kind of facilities available and amenities around to cover for that particular demography. So there were the idea was to have new build and refurbished 26 social housing schemes, and in total create something like 1,000 homes. If you're interested in this, this is just behind North Shields. If you go to the Fish Quays, it's the last road you're coming up before the scrapyard and the big brown field side. It has at the moment a spectacular view on the Tyne, to be fair. Yeah. Then you had 5 consortia bidding for the contract, 5 very different project managers with it. So let me introduce the project managers to you. So there was one, so this is private sector project managers that basically bidded for it. One was a professional PM. He was quite good. He would take, sorry, I said quite good. So he kind of was relatively young, came always prepared to meetings, had a lot of notes that he went through, and kind of led the agenda, and had a lot of questions and kind of steered the meeting as well. Then we had a contractor project manager, which came from the construction industry, was promoted into like a project management role. Actually, I met that guy as well. It's a friend from Alex, and to describe it nicely, he kind of wanted to make sure that his points are heard. He had a very clear idea of what the best way of doing this would be, and he made sure that he would do so. And I suppose a nice way of saying it, he uses a lot of verbal impressions. I remember we had a discussion about football teams, had nothing to do with this, but he said like it was national football, it was World Cup. I looked at it, so it was at the beginning of the World Cup. There was a question which team goes through, and the key points here to take away to give you an idea from this. So he said like no, so you saw it and say no, this team is a lot better because of this and this and this. So he had a little bit of forceful style, I would say, and that is a polite description probably. Other people may describe that differently. Now then they had as well a strategic PM, who we had as well here as a guest lecturer to give a little bit of an insight. He focuses on kind of listening, so in communication skills we may come to that. And he came mostly to listen to the public sector team, yeah, and took notes. And then he would come back and confirm, those points are very feasible. With those, have you considered those alternatives? Yeah? So he opened up the decision-making process, showed his reasoning, yeah, and came back to the team, affirming as well where he agreed and showed alternatives where he thought maybe there are other things to consider. Yeah? And that is why they named him strategic project manager. So he kind of created a conversation. Yeah? That it wasn't so much a negotiation yet. Yeah? Then there was an inexperienced PM. Now you had the whole mix there, which was quite interesting. So sometimes he listened, sometimes he really wanted to kind of make his point. And there was no consistent communication patterns. I go here by the description of Alex. And then you had a complacent PM who kind of just sat in, took notes, went away, and then kind of confirmed the points by email, but there was very little dialogue. So people kind of just, a lot of the meetings finished early with him, which some of the team members perceived as good. Who do you think won the contract just from these narratives? I have to say, a lot is anecdotal from Alex, but who do you think got the contract and builds at the moment, actually finishes at the moment the building? Just from a feeling.
Professional.
Professional PM? Yeah? Why? Because it says professional. No, from the narrative, I suppose, that I gave was...
or strategic. But I think somebody that makes a lot of notes and brings up a lot of issues or stuff is a good person to have.
Yeah. So this leadership, from the PM stepping in and leading as well kind of the themes that the project managers needed to kind of cover. Yeah. Other perspectives? And you said as well strategic. Why strategic maybe?
In layman's terms, sort of like on the ball. You need somebody like that to enforce what's going to happen and have a plan for what's going to happen as well, and bring up things that you might not have thought about.
With whom would you have liked to work? Just from the framed narrative I gave you, it's. I mean that is extremely biased, of course, the way I've told it, but. Contractor, yeah, clear line and forceful.
Have more option to play.
Okay. It's different power emphasis. Yeah, I hope you see that. Yeah, in that relationship setting, and they have different benefits and different settings. Actually, do I have the conclusion? Oh, okay. Wait a minute. I may have said on the. Okay. I'll give you a little bit more background before concluding. So the public sector team was made up as well of their own project manager, and he was having. He had a background in older people homes for future initiative, and you have as well assistant manager that was in extra care. So they came from a caring background. Is that right? Caring. Yeah, so working in care, looking after people. Yeah. And then assistant manager was older people homes specialized for the future team as well. And then you kind of had the own team set up kind of below. Yeah. Now with this, the big question was, of course, what happened there? My professional PM slipped into the contractor. Yeah, well, the answer is basically the public sector team, and maybe if you would have heard who was sitting on the public side, selected actually in strong favor against like the best bid, strategic project manager. Yeah, and this may come surprising, but those negotiations go over years. Yeah, and the initial negotiation of just setting up the contract took 4 months. Yeah? Regular meetings with project managers to kind of agree what they actually want to have in the contract. Yeah? So it's about how you're getting on with the project manager. And this was a very honest approach. Yeah? He kind of listened carefully and at the same time opened up the decision making. Yeah? Whereas nearly in all other positions you have hard negotiating. Yeah? And if you don't yet know what product you're buying, if you try to develop it, this is of course quite contextual. And particularly on the background, this was preferred. Yeah? So there is a certain notion of figuring out what your team needs at the front end. Yeah? All these PM styles are legitimate, but it depends, of course, with whom you're working. Yeah? So the observations from the field, lines of accountability was a big thing, yeah? and whom you are working with as well. Pick the players carefully, match the experience. Yeah? So actually, they were really alienated by the loud guy. He's really funny and a nice person to have around, but his style is maybe a little bit abrupt for some people. Yeah? And match the experience, and honest and open was the key for winning that bid. So it's quite an interesting one. Okay. Yeah, future reading. I wanted to have it again where they all hold hands. And there's as well papers that you can read on that. Any questions? Okay. So the key lesson, I guess, is really figure out who your team is, yeah, and understand as well their perspectives. And by that, you come then very easily to preferred styles of communicating, how to interact. Yeah. But it's a self-aware mode, very difficult to get to. So maybe try that analysis. Maybe do it with a peer. It's fun. It can be a little bit confrontational, depending on I told you already, my self-awareness of my hands, very low. And when I watched my video afterwards, Robert, you move your hands a lot. It's like, this wasn't me. This is a camera angle, I think, that looks a lot more movement than what I thought I would do. Okay. You get the idea. Okay, we leave it with that for now, and